Pleasant Valley Golf Course. It's in Centreville, Maryland. Pleasant Valley, I have not checked the actual stats on it, but I don't believe it was really rated super high. It was probably a 135 course. It was pretty good in terms of that rating. Really, I think the golf now rating was actually a little bit lower than that, maybe 125 in the most, 6,800 yards. And it was a decently difficult course, I think, as much because it had a fair amount of water and a fair amount of waste and a fair amount of just low-hanging, ivy kind of waste along the sides of the rough. And it also had good rough, decently thick rough that was deep enough in places to lose balls, and rough that was deep enough definitely to affect your shot and make me want to club up a couple of clubs, where I normally wouldn't, and definitely challenged the shots come out of the rough. So it was, I think, a solid course. I wouldn't call it a great course, but I would definitely call it a solid course. Though one thing I think that was outstanding about the course in terms of its negativity was that the course is, like other courses in that area, is just off of Dulles and well in the landing pattern for the big jets. And it was interesting. I've played a few courses where there are some jets that come around and over the course and so forth, but in this case, the jets were pretty constant and not quite slow enough to just be coasting over without making any noise. And because you do see a fair amount of if enough jets come by, you're going to see some jets come by that aren't quiet like some of them are now. And you hear this drone over the course, and it was at some point I did feel like it was a distraction and it was annoying. They were loud enough and frequent enough, and it seemed like, quite often, just when I was getting ready to set up a shot or something like that, here would come a jet droning in over the shot, and not really low, but not high either, maybe about 500 feet or so. And it was a distraction at some point. Also, in terms of negative things about the course, I remember that there was a loudspeaker blaring where the announcer was talking about a baseball game was being held apparently at a high school or something that was just through, over the woods outside the course, and you couldn't see any of it, but you could hear the announcer and you could hear the cheering. Occasionally, some cheerleader would start screaming or whatever, and you could hear that for about 3 or 4 of the holes on the front side and 1 or 2 holes in the back. And it was a fairly distracting thing. It was just kind of goofy. You're sitting out there playing golf, and there's a guy next to you talking about a baseball game on loudspeakers. But overall, I think the course had modest at most negatives. There really weren't any houses on the course. There wasn't a lot of road noise. There was a little bit, because, like some courses, it's pretty much a common thing that some part of the course is going to be next to the road where you have to take the road that comes to the course. And in this case, the road is a fairly modest, decently traveled 2-lane road that one lane each direction that goes by the course. And you do hear the occasional car go by, and there's a little bit of a local road right next to it on the other side of the course, like on the right side, and you hear a little traffic there. But generally, it was pretty quiet. I think it was a nice environment, and to me, the biggest problem with it was that on some holes, the jets were a problem, and on some holes, the loudspeaker was a problem. But in general, it was a pretty good course. And I thought it was a good, challenging course. A lot of elevated greens, a lot of big, bunkers around the greens, some steep drop-offs on the side of the greens, most of the time. Dog legs, curving, crescent shots, a good up and down, verticality, decent course. It wasn't a great course, but it was a pretty solid, decent course. Definitely a good challenge. I would say it was definitely a 135 course. and long enough from the back tees to be a challenge, but not too long. And I definitely felt comfortable playing this course from the back tees. And some of the holes, like number 18 was, going along that lake, very challenging hole, especially from the back tees. You have to hit from this long shoot out there, but not too challenging. Again, it wasn't too tight to make it impossible, but it was tight enough to make it a challenge. So I can't complain about the course in terms of its difficulty at all. And I think it was a solid challenge, a solid entertaining course. And I definitely would give this course a B+. The clubhouse was nice. The guys were open there after dark. They were there watching a hockey game, watching the Caps final, and there were 3 or 4 guys there watching. And the guy had the the kitchen open and gave me a hot dog and a draft beer. And it was good, good combination, good draft beer, good hot dog, good lightly broiled hot dog. Really nice. I certainly enjoyed it. The clubhouse is very nice staff, very polite. It was about as nice a round of golf as I've had in a while. And unfortunately, I think, with those 2 issues, the only real strikes against this course, that's certainly a B+ course. I think it's about as good a course as you can get without going to a resort or somewhere or something. Okay. So I will say that it is a B+ course. That's Pleasant Valley Golf Course, Pleasant Valley Golf Club, whatever, in Centreville, Virginia. That is just, I hadn't said this before, but Centreville, it's Route 28 and Route 50 roughly, in just northeast of Manassas, just west of, southwest of Dulles Airport. It's north of 66. Very nice course. Solid B+.